Good morning, everyone. Welcome to YouShouldListen.com. All right. Welcome to YouShouldListen.com once more. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you for being here. We're going to discuss a few things today, just a few policy stances that I made note of during the 10th Republican debate that was hosted by CNN the other night. So we're just going to go over a few things there. I'm not going to keep you too long because I know you have things to do, and sometimes these broadcasts or podcasts or whatever, they can sort of go on too long. And I want you to continue to come back. So I'm just going to try to shoot you in the arm with a espresso-like type of information. And then we keep it moving and keep it going with our day. I just ask that you do click on my contact link and subscribe so that you can receive the latest information and stay up to date with all my broadcasts and any newsletters that I'm pushing out to you all. So once again, thank you and welcome to YouShouldListen.com. And we're going to get right into it right after this brief message. Okay. Welcome back to YouShouldListen.com. So the other night, the Republicans had their 10th and final debate before Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday is just a term used for the day in March, the first voting block in March, the first Tuesday, which is the voting day in March, where so many states vote, and there's like a lot of delegates that's up for grabs. It's like 500. So that's a huge chunk of the electorate that's going to all vote on the same day. So they call it Super Tuesday. So they had their final debate before Super Tuesday the other night. Special guest 41 was in the house. That's former President Herbert Walker Bush. Hometown boy. He was in the house. The debate was in Texas. So he got a really nice standing ovation. But after that, all the niceties was over. It seemed like it was really a hatchet job. And I say that because it appeared that Marco Rubio and Senator Ted Cruz, they were definitely after Donald Trump very, very aggressively in this debate, mostly because they wanted to try to put a dent in his lead nationally and in all the states they're going to be voting soon. And they also wanted to make it appear as if they can actually take the Donald on. Now, here's the problem with that, folks. They wait until the 10th debate to mount an offensive. They wait until, 9 months into the election cycle to actually try to mount an offensive. And the problem with that delay is he's already the overwhelming majority holder of all the polls of the contestants that's still left on the running right now. Because if you recall, there were about 17 that was running initially, and now that there's 5, he's still leading. So they waited a very long time to try to put a dent in his lead, but they did try nonetheless. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and start with just a piece of a back and forth that I thought was really and honestly and truthfully one of the highlights of the entire debate. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull this up for you right now, and you can take a listen to the exchange. Here we go. The 10th Republican debate, a fiery exchange between Senator Ted Cruz and Donald Trump.
Roughly 65% of Republicans think Donald is not the right candidate to go against Hillary Clinton. Now, part of the reason is in the last 10 polls on Real Clear Politics, he's lost to Hillary on 8 of them. In the last 10 polls on Real Clear Politics, I either tie or beat Hillary. And this is an example. You know, the mainstream media is laying off Donald now. They're going to pick apart his taxes. They're going to pick apart his business deals. And let's take, for example, one of Hillary's great vulnerabilities, the corruption at the Clinton Foundation. The fact that she had CEOs and foreign companies giving her money while she was Secretary of State. The next Republican nominee needs to be able to make that case against Hillary. And if Donald tried to do it, Hillary would turn to Donald and say, but gosh, Donald, you gave $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. I even went to your wedding. He can't prosecute the case against Hillary, and we can't risk another 4 years of these failed Obama policies by nominating someone who loses to Hillary Clinton in November.
Okay, and so there you have it. And that was the tone and tenor of the entire evening. You see Senator Ted Cruz, the senator of Texas, he came after Donald Trump very aggressively this evening. And that particular exchange was, as you heard, Ted Cruz posing the question as to whether or not Donald Trump can really actually be competitive and win the nomination and win the presidency, ultimately against whoever the Democratic nominee is. And a lot of prognosticators like to think at this point that it's going to be Hillary Clinton, but there's still a long way to go. But we're not talking about that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and play you Donald Trump's response to the attack leveled against him by Ted Cruz.
At the beginning, I said openly to everybody that I contribute to many, many politicians, both Republican and Democrat. And I have over the years. I'm a businessman. I have over the years. And I sort of have to laugh when Ted makes a big deal out of the fact that he's doing well in the polls. Well, I'm beating him in virtually every poll. I'm tied in Texas, by the way, which I shouldn't be, but I think I'll do very well. But a poll just came out, of Bloomberg poll, where I am beating him so badly that it's like embarrassing even for me to say I'm beating him that badly. And here's the thing. It was sort of funny. 65% of the people don't like you. I just got 36% of the vote, right? I just got 46% on another one. I got 38% on another one. That means, and he got 20 and 22, and he lost in South Carolina so badly. That was going to be his stronghold. He said a year ago, oh, I can't lose South Carolina. I beat him in a landslide. Last week in Nevada, I beat him in a landslide. And he's saying about the polls. What other thing? Hillary Clinton, take a look at USA Today, take a look at the Q poll. I beat her, and I beat her badly, and I haven't even started on her. I only had one little interchange, and that was 4 weeks ago when she said I was sexist, and believe me, they had a rough weekend that weekend between Bill and Hillary. They had a rough weekend. Gentlemen.
Okay, and so there you have it, Donald Trump's rebuttal against the claims levied against him by Ted Cruz that he is not going to be an efficient Republican nominee against Hillary Clinton in the fall, should she get the Democratic nomination. So that exchange is just give you an idea of the tone and tenor of this debate, because it was very fiery, and so much so that it was difficult to discern what policy stances were actually being made, what issues were actually being discussed, because the entire evening you had Marco Rubio, the senator of Florida, on one side of Donald Trump attacking him, and then you had Ted Cruz, the senator of Texas, on the opposite side of Donald Trump attacking him. So all night it was like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz attacking Trump all night. And what's funny is we had two other candidates there, Governor of Ohio, John Kasich, and we also had retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson there as well. And so just on a few policy issues on healthcare, for example, Donald Trump says that insurance companies and lobbyists make a fortune and that they also buy politicians. That was an important statement that he made, because as you know, insurance is very high, healthcare costs are very high, costs of medication and drugs are very high, costs of treatments are very high, comparable to any other industrialized nation in the world. We have the highest costs of anyone, and not that we're getting any different type of drugs or any different type of machines. It's the simple fact that the insurance companies and these huge pharmaceutical companies, there's little to no regulation as to what they can charge folks for the products that they're selling, because our politicians, they're essentially, in the pocket. So I, on that front, agree with Donald Trump when he made that claim. And he also said, to help with the cost, we should first get rid of the borders around states, all right, to make insurance more competitive. Now, what he meant by that is, if you know or not, when you purchase insurance, you can only purchase insurance provided by whatever providers that's currently doing business in your state. No matter if, say, this next state over, Michigan or Indiana, if they had a better plan that costs less, you would not be able to get that plan. You have to get whatever is provided in the state of Ohio by whatever provider that's currently there. And so what he's proposing is to get rid of the state line so that it could be more competition between the companies nationwide, and you're not just stuck with the 2 or 3 big companies that are in your state. So that's a very, very interesting piece. He also believes that pre-existing conditions should be covered by your insurance company. So say if you had a broken arm when you were like 15, and then you're 40 years old, and that arm starts to bother you again, and they look at your record and say, oh no, you broke that arm when you're 15 years old, so we're not going to treat it. That's a way that insurance companies use their mischievous tactics to deny you your health care coverage based on a term they call pre-existing conditions. But right now, under the current provisions in law, the Obamacare, pre-existing conditions are covered. So he made a few good points that I actually agree with. Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, however, they didn't really make many points on healthcare. What they did do was simply attack Donald Trump and call him too liberal, because Donald Trump says he doesn't want people dying in the streets. And by that, he meant he didn't want people who are poor or people who could not, really afford to get seen. He don't want them just laying in the streets and dying. He want the government to actually have some compassion and help the poor and the sick, old people out and everything like that. So that was a good point. John Kasich and Ben Carson, they appeared to be lost in the sauce on the topic at the time, and mostly because it was just like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, trying to fight Donald Trump on it. So another issue that was discussed that's in the news lately is Donald Trump's taxes. Now, you may or may not know, but Mitt Romney, earlier this week, he made the claim that Donald Trump hasn't released his taxes because he's either not wealthy as he claimed to be, or he haven't paid his fair share, or he lies about donating to Veterans Group. And so Donald Trump, essentially his response was he released his financial papers, over 100 pages of financial papers last year when he announced that he was running, and that you wouldn't learn anything about anyone's wealth through their taxes. And the reason he hasn't released them yet is because he's currently under audit for like the last 2 or 3 years. So obviously he said he can't release them until the audit is complete. So again, there was more bickering and fighting and clawing at Donald Trump on every single thing he said by Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. So really this debate didn't really get to the meat and potatoes, as I would like to call it, because it was just too much bickering, like a schoolyard fight. And one of the other issues that stood out, and this is like the final issue that really stood out, was the current FBI versus Apple battle that's happening and that's taking place. I'm not certain if you're aware or not, but just to catch you up, the FBI has sent Apple a judge order indicating that they need Apple to make a way for the FBI to get into an encrypted iPhone. And that encrypted iPhone belonged to the San Bernardino terrorist killers. Now, they need to get into that phone so they can see who this phone was contacting, what messages, emails, texts, and pictures and stuff like that was actually being sent and received, so that they can look and have a bigger understanding of the network this terrorist was using prior to committing such atrocities. Now, Apple, as you may know, Tim Cook, he came out and said, no, I will not assist the FBI because this will create a backdoor and it will put hundreds of millions of customers' information and phones at risk. And the FBI is just insisting that, no, we need you to just open this one particular phone. We want you to create a software where we can bypass the encryption code on this one particular phone so that we then can guess the password. That's all we need you to do. We need to just get into this one phone, because if you know or not, with these iPhones, there's a mechanism in place where if you enter the password incorrectly, more than, I believe it's 10 times, then the phone automatically self-destructs and all the information is lost forever. So what the FBI is doing, they have software in place where they can guess the password, but obviously it'll take more than 10 times, and they don't want to lose that sensitive information that's on the phone. So they asked Apple for assistance. Apple said no. So that's just a brief overview of that. And, you know, they posed a question, what do you think about the FBI versus Apple? Senator Marco Rubio said, first, said Apple is right. You know, that was his initial stance. Apple is right. They should not help the FBI. But now he says Apple is wrong and believes the FBI is right, and Apple think it hurts their brand. So he essentially saying Apple needs to help the FBI and stop worrying about their image and their branding, because this is a terrorist investigation and the national security of the United States of America is more important than the image of Apple. So that was important, and an important distinction that Marco Rubio made. And I actually thought it was rather interesting. Ted Cruz said that yes, Apple should comply. Ben Carson said he expects Apple to comply. So essentially everyone on the panel said, yeah, Apple needs to comply with the FBI and help them out with this one phone, and that it wouldn't create any type of precedent because they just want to get into one phone and they don't want like a backdoor key to every single phone. So that was the candidate's stance on that. And, you know, it was interesting. At least I thought it was interesting. And so that's currently in the news, the whole FBI versus Apple debacle. And I hope that it's, you know, resolved. Now, one more and final piece of information I'm going to pass along to you is, I know you heard about this before, the wall, the wall, the wall. The wall, the wall, the wall. You know, because Trump wants to build a wall, and he says Mexico is going to pay for it. So the Mexican president, former Mexican president, says we're not paying for that fucking wall to Donald Trump. So they asked Donald Trump, what are you going to do about paying for the wall? And Trump aggressively rebuted that claim. He said, you know what? The wall just got 10 feet higher. We have a $58 billion trade deficit with Mexico. All right, the wall itself will cost $10 to $12 billion to make for 1,000 miles, and Mexico will pay for it. And then they said, but if they don't pay for it, what will you do? Will you have some sort of trade war? And again, Donald Trump reiterated that we have a $58 billion trade deficit with Mexico. And if they want to have a trade war, he wouldn't, you know, be against that, because he said, if you look at Mexico, they've taken all of our American companies. Carrier, the air conditioning company, just went to Mexico. They took Ford, and they're building a $2.5 billion plant in Mexico. They took Nabisco, which, as you know, Oreos, unlike the magic, he said he won't be eating any more Oreos. They are taking our businesses, our workers, and moving them to Mexico. So he said a trade war is something he would not mind if it's in the best interest of the United States and our economy and our workers. So that was an important little tidbit, because, you know, the whole wall question has been coming up quite frequently lately, and he actually said, hey, Mexico will pay for it, and the wall just got 10 feet higher. So that's just a brief wrap up of the 10th and final Republican debate before the Super Tuesday contest gets underway, and I just wanted to get you up to date on that. If you have any questions, any concerns, any comments that you would like to leave, just go to my contact page and go ahead and enter your information and submit it. I'll get it, only I'll get it, and I'll make sure that I'll get back with you as soon as I possibly can. And I'll also make sure that you'll receive any newsletters or updates or any information that I will be providing to you all in the future. So once again, thank you for coming to YouShouldListen.com. I hope that you found some of the information I provided today meaningful. I will continue to provide this information. Sometime these broadcasts may go a little longer depending on what we're discussing, but I try and I will continue to try to make sure that they don't bore you to tears. So thank you for coming to YouShouldListen.com, and you have a great day.